Hello Fenlanders, how are you? I'm Anna and this is not our farm.
Today we're at Claydon Drills. Jeff's done us a little open day for anyone who wants to come. I think Matthew Barber's going to be here as well. That's good. As you can see, we've got some tillage equipment, some weeding equipment, some straw harrows, some drills, and a little tiny cultivator thing. I can't remember what the name of it is at the minute, but we'll learn about the machines as we go through the day. So let's take you right to it. Let's get going. You're a little bit excited now.
A little bit.
My name's Tate Norman. I work as a territory manager for Claydon. What we're going to do to start off with, Jeff's going to go through a presentation, talk a little bit about the company history, how we ended up doing what we do today, company ethos and the reasons for doing it all. Then we're going to go out around the farm and have a quick look around the factory, which is all in the farmyard here. Quick look at that, and then we'll head out into the fields at the back here where we've got some rape drilled. And we're going to have a quick look at that, and then we'll look at some machines running in the next door field. So we've got one of each of the machines that we'll be talking about in the presentation.
I'm the third generation farmer here on the farm. My grandfather farmed here, my father bought the farm in '57, and I came home at the grand age of 16 in 1970 and took on the reins of farming. At 13, I think father thought I was cheap labour because I used to do nearly all the ploughing and break all the equipment and then have to repair it as well. So my skills on welding were quickly developed. I went into the agricultural engineering. Father was ill, came home at 16, dumped in at the deep end and started farming here. So we were basically farmers in the 70s. It was a different time then. There were no chemicals really, lots of couch in the fields. Lots of bad drainage. We'd be forever pulling tractors out of wet holes, and the place was, quite honestly, it was a different way of farming. We used to grow spring barley because we used to have too much black grass and it didn't yield on this heavy ground. And so it was an interesting time because the 70s a lot changed. Over the last 20 years, we've changed the way we farm completely and gone down the system we have, which I want to share with you today. We're going back to the 70s. Direct drilling came in big time because wheat prices were low and people wanted to establish crops more cheaply. And they could. And some years you put it on this heavy land and you get fantastic yield. And another year you'd have an out-and-out disaster. 2009 onwards, we developed what we called the hybrid drill, and it's ranges from a 3 metre seed only or seed and fertiliser, and trail drills up to 8 metres, and they've gone extremely well. So we've refreshed them a bit, and we've gone now for this year to the new model drill, which is the Evolution. Our challenge as farmers is actually to be profitable and be in business for a start, but more so to feed the whole population. And by 2050, we have to produce 60% more food from the world. Quite a frightening thought, isn't it? It's not that far away. Our soil is our most important asset. As the human race, without good soil, we can't survive. And we aren't going to do 60% more food production without good soil, are we? When you look at that, so really key to look after the soil. Opti till is about just the optimum tillage to establish a really, really good crop. Well, the first operation in Opti till is your harvester, believe it or not, it's the combine. And then managing any heads that the combine's missed, any volunteers, any weeds, to strike them off and make them grow, and then control them between the crops, not within the next crop. We then spray off those residues in with the drill, and then we'll either straw harrow behind the drill or run a set of Cambridge rolls, and that's all we do is Opti till. And pay a little bit of attention to your harvesting operation, because if you do a good job there, everything following that is simple. If you leave a long stubble, it can be challenging and you can't see the next crop growing in it so easily. With a short stubble, you see the crop early. If you start to see a slug problem, you see it rather than being too late, hiding in a long stubble. All those elements makes it a lot easier to farm with a short stubble.
Are you excited about going around the factory tour?
Yeah. Well, I did get 2 bags.
Look, you moan about not having a
Pretty
hat.
happy.
You got a hat in there though?
No.
Have you got a hat?
Yeah.
Hey, and you got 2 hats.
So what did you think of the presentation?
Presentation was epic, wasn't it? It's exactly what we're trying to do on the farm at the minute.
Yeah.
With regenerative farming. Hey, Dad's found himself a telly truck. Dad, bring your Allen keys so we can have the forward reverse lever off it while they're not looking.
Are you in need of a forward and reverse lever?
Yeah, I think that's what's gone on the telly truck. So this is our little wobble around Claydon Drill Factory. Jeff's excited to show us his new factory.
When I came home in 1917, none of these buildings were here. We had a wooden shed here and a couple of old Romney type Nissen huts. That was the farm. This year we've spent more money than we've ever spent on all these added together on that one building with 4 cranes in behind it. So in 2022 that's our new assembly facility. But basically what happens is all our components come into the stores. They then get put onto a pallet like I'm standing on here. And on here there are 2 drill wings in their raw form. So laser cut plates and cut to length box section. So we buy them in laser cut, the box section cut to length. It then comes down here and goes on a jig like you see in the middle there. And it starts to form seeding frames or armature. So this end is where all of the big production, or the big heavy stuff is done. The seeding frames. He's got a wing of a 6-metre drill there he's got on the crane. And there's some more weld bays in there which you see with components. And the next stage is to take it into the paint shop. So we'll head over to the paint shop now.
Are you from TNS as well then?
Yes.
Alright, Daniel.
Nice to meet you, Daniel. We used to work together.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
I guess I swear. Yeah.
Surprised you haven't got more grey hairs.
What, working with me?
Yeah. We're having a family reunion on our
Do you remember
YouTube
the
channel.
ducks? Do you remember the ducks that we rehomed?
Oh, Dewey, Louie.
Huey, Dewey and Larry.
Yeah,
What happened to them? I don't know. No, you did. No, you did. We didn't.
It's probably Granddaddy.
They'll come into here for the painting. So what happens is they'll first of all go into the shop glass at the back there, where they're cleaned off 100%, and they'll all end up grey like the ones you see here, and in the paint bay there. And once they go into there, they'll warm them up just a little bit with gas so there's no moisture. They'll put 2 coats of undercoat, cook it on, so it's actually cooked like stove enamelling, and then they'll put 2 coats of top coat on, so you have 4 coats of paint go onto a plain product. Once they get 4 layers of paint on, they'll cook it to 80 degrees so it's really stoved on. Now the real importance of that is in 10 years time, when you come to change that drill, you wash it off and it looks great. And when it looks great, it'll make top dollar. And we've got 10-year-old drills now that were sold for what, about 45,000, making 30,000. They stay in here for overnight, they'll then come out and go up to the assembly. So at the moment they're going up to the top, but in the future they'll cross the yard into the new assembly building just here. So we'll go and have a look in there now. Lovely facility, 4 cranes, 4 areas of construction. So 18 metre square areas, so we can get 2, 3, 4 drills in each of those areas to assemble. We only finished it 2-3 weeks ago, but we're so busy at the moment, they don't want to stop production up there to bring things here. Because if we stop production there, we're going to lose some time, and that could make some of those drills that some of you may have ordered a bit later still. Because we're expecting a 40% growth this year again. Last year we had a 40% growth. It's not going to be long before we're turning 20 million plus a year. We're looking now at turning £1 million every month. So it's really good, and it's going to grow. And the product speaks for itself, as many of us know. A big floor area, it's a lovely big building, 86 metres long. 26 metres wide. We thought, will we put it up? What are we going to do in there? But you'd be surprised, it's absolutely utilised fully now. And up at that end is where the stores are. All the laser comes into there, all the box section comes into there. Look at the hose reels, the seed pipes up on top of that rack there. There's vast amounts of capital in there and spare parts and everything. And what's going to happen going forward is that area is going to grow a bit more out to where this drill is. And this area, we're then going to use this for rework. So if somebody wants an extra on a drill, that will come from production. And if it was a late decision, it will come into here and be done. R&D will come into here, and the service work will come into here. So this building's going to be fully utilised still.
Do you reckon Dad could sport a mullet?
What?
Do you reckon Dad could sport a mullet?
What do you reckon?
It's the in thing now, Dad. Do you want
Fancy a mullet?
I think we could do it.
Should we try it? Mullet seems to be the in thing, doesn't
Start
it?
with November. Are you assessing the welding?
Yeah, I'm just no.
Seeing
The
if
welding,
yours is
the
as good
welding's
as that.
fine. Like, I mean, look at the size of these pins. Like, we're both filming. Look at the size of those pins. They're not going to break them or bend them in a hurry, are they? If you're enjoying today's video, don't forget to give it a like. Cheers, guys. Quick, run.
Come on, you two. Laurel and Hardy.
I'm not used to all these hills.
But this field was the very first field in 2002 we drilled with the Claydon drill. And since then, it's been Terrastar twice in that whole time. We mould drained it before we put the new road in down there in 2009. And apart from that, it's only been Claydon drilled and straw harrowed. So that's now 20 odd years. And so when you look at this soil, you think it would be really tight and compacted. But when you take the fork and put it where the drill went, you can see it's quite nice. And if I go in between here on the ridge, it's very solid still. And so you can see the difference. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to dig part of the ridge and part of the trench, and we'll have a look at what the soil structure is like. So I've gone in the fork depths up, and you can see the soil here. You can see all the roots going through, and the soil itself is nice and crumbly. And within the soil, the structure's there, that's a bit firm, but there's still roots and there's still wormholes. So the crop is actually accessing everything it needs. There's quite a bit of moisture, but we did notice on the fields that we'd hoed and made a little tilt on the top, we didn't get the same level of cracking. Let's go over and have a look at the straw harrow. I've had my fair share of talking now, I think, so I'm going to hand over to Tate to talk to the straw harrow with you.
So the first thing to talk about really is the tine design. This is actually a 16mm tine that we're looking at on this machine. Our standard tine is a 14mm tine, and about 90% of our straw harrows would go out with a 14mm, that's 14mm thickness tine on there, which works just fine for most applications. The 16mm is slightly more aggressive, but we find that because it's a thicker steel, it's not quite as flexible as the 14mm, so we have had one or two break, whereas we hardly hear of any 14mm tines breaking unless they get to the point where, probably almost where these are now, and they're just about at the end of their life and they've not got the flexibility in them. So the tine is a wraparound tine design, which means that there's actually no fixed pressure point on the tine. It slides over the tube, and then you've got these 3 bolts here which just stop it from going anywhere on the tube, so keep it in position but don't actually pinch it to the beam, and that means that any stress going through that coil is not taken out through one point, which is where you'd have a break. So that's what gives the tine its flexibility and means that they'll flex as much side to side as they will forwards and backwards. So we've got 5 rows of tines in all of our straw harrows. This machine is a prototype machine. It's the 2nd year of operation for this machine. It's a 9 metre, which makes it the largest in the mounted range now. And we go from a 3 metre mounted, which we've sold a handful of, needs to be quite a small farm for a 3 metre really, and then a 7.5, which has been the most popular model for quite a few years. We've done over 800 7.5 metres since 2010, so we've done a lot of those. This 9 metre now being the biggest in the mounted range, and I think that we'll sell quite a few of these. Then we go to trailed, and we do a 12 metre and a 15 metre in the trailed versions. Obviously a trailing kit and some transport wheels in there adds quite a bit of cost, so you really do need to have quite a few acres to get over to justify having a bigger trailed machine. But they've all got exactly the same tines on them, exactly the same principle, same amount of rows of tines and the same spacings. The tines are hydraulically adjustable, so this ram that you see laying across the top will adjust the angle of the tines. They're in their most aggressive setting at the moment, which is where we would start running them, and then you can alter the angle on the move if you need to release any trash that's building up in there, or level the soil surface, or leave a more level finish when you're running with the machine. It would normally be working for anywhere from 15 kilometers an hour up to 25 kilometers an hour. There's not really any limit to the forward speed that we run at with this machine. It's literally how level your fields are and how comfortable the tractor is that are the limiting factors. So the faster the better is often the case with straw harrowing. This is a 6 metre Evo. We've been producing the Evo. This is the second prototype of the Evo, but it's pretty close to the production machine. We're doing this in a 3 metre width, a 4 metre. We've introduced a 4.5 metre. We then do a 4.8, which we've been doing anyway, and then a 5 metre, which is a new introduction, and then this 6 metre mounted. We do all of those widths, barring the 4.5 and 5 in trailed, plus an 8 metre in the trails. The main difference between this and the hybrid that you might be used to already is that we've pushed the frame, this drilling frame, back from the headstock to create space for this row of cutting discs. We've had cutting discs on the trail drills since we started building those in about 2015, but we've been limited by space on the front of the mounted drills up until now, so we've had to push it back to allow us to put these discs in, which is something that people have been asking about. So pushed it back to create space, but we've also managed to condense the frame by redesigning this tine clamp to shorten the distance between the leading tine and the seeding tine. So there is a little bit less space there. I don't think it'll be too much of an issue because you've got the disc to cut any trash at the front anyway, but by doing that we've managed to condense that frame and bring some of that weight forward that we've already pushed back, and we've also shortened some of the other components as well, just to keep it as far forward as possible. It's got a slightly bigger hopper than the hybrids, probably equates to about 100 kilos, but we didn't want to go too big on there because again we're limited by weight on a mounted drill. We've taken a bit of the centre frame out, or reshaped that to allow a bit more space and better access to the metering unit. It's got the same Accord metering unit as we've always run on the mounted hybrids. It's got a slightly different fan, so it's now the same fan for all the mounted and trailed drills, because we're using the fan oil circuit for some of the other features on the drill. The discs are on hydraulics, so we can lift those up out of the way or set the height of those on rams and shims, and so are the depth wheels on these machines now. Where we had them on turnbuckles before, we've now got a ram with spaces in it to set the depth. So when we run the drill in the ground in a minute, you'll see that the leading tine boils soil up, which the A-share goes through. Some of that soil will flow over the A-share and land back on top of the seed on the shelf once it's been placed, but some of it will flow off to the sides and we'll end up with a ridge of loose soil on the unmoved ground between the rows, and the job of the harrows at the back is to get that soil back over the seeded row. So that's what they're there to do, so for that reason they sit in the ridges either side of the seeded rows. Hopper capacity is about 1900 litres on this now, up from 1700 on the mounted hybrids, so that's increased it by about 100 kilos, so probably about 1300 kilos of wheat in one of these hoppers, so you can always get a ton in without being completely empty. This one's got a second hopper on it, which is a stocks metering unit with a second distribution head going down to splash plates across the back of the toolbar. So Frank's been using this for applying slug pellets, but it could be used for applying Avadex with a different roller in there in the same place, or it could be used for microgranular fertiliser, which you would feed into the main drill venturi and it would go down with the seed and end up with the seed in the seeded rows. we want the clods, we want to see the clods on the top, because we know if we've got the clods on the top, then the fine tilth is going to be down around the seed. So if I look in a seeded row, just scrape this away, then should be able to find where the tine's been down the centre there. Clear that out quite easily with your hand, and then the seed would be placed on the shelf either side. If I get my hand and put the back of the hand on the shelf where the seed's been placed and slide it along through there, you've got all those clods on the top. So you've got this sort of thing on the top which the rolls are going to deal with, so that's fine, but underneath it doesn't all fall off. Where the seed would have been placed on those shelves either side, we've got all this fine tilth that's filtered down, and that's happened because the harrows at the back have been shaking that as we've gone along. The first row of harrows have pushed it all across, and the second row of harrows, which have been running quite aggressively, are just shaking that seed bed, so that all that fine tilth's ending up around the seed, which is ideal, it's where we want it. We've got that good soil to seed contact. A tool to move a bit more soil than a straw harrow. If there's customers that are in the early years of using a drill and wanting to see a bit more soil movement than they'll get with a straw harrow, then the Terrastar does that for them. It's also pretty handy for incorporating manures or going through cover crops and cutting those up. So it's a cross-bladed design. The rotor is not a new design at all. It came from a machine that Falcon were making back in, I think, the 70s, which Jeff had on the farm here. He used to use that machine for pulling down ploughing and cultivated land when he was running a traditional system. That machine that he had 4 gangs of rotors, one behind the other, and he cut the rear 2 rotors off and mounted them next to the others, pretty much as you see here, and he made his own machine with his own frame because he didn't need 4 rotors to do what he needed to do, and that worked really well for him then, and it sat in the nettles for a long time. A few years ago, probably about 2015 or 16, there was other manufacturers adding discs to the front of their straw harrows and doing things like that. We thought about doing it, but didn't want to compromise our straw harrow and the simple machine that it is. So we thought, well, we'll drag that machine out that Jeff used to use and see if that's a good machine on the stubbles, and it worked really well. So we thought we'll leave the straw harrow alone and we'll offer another machine, and that's where the Terrastar came from. It's not changed a lot since Jeff made it then. It's got the harrows on the back of it as an optional extra, and some lights and other finishings on it, but it's really the same machine that we had then, and it just does move that bit more soil. What we really like about it is that it doesn't completely destroy the structure of the soil. We're creating a layer of tilth on the top without disrupting all of that soil structure and risking it becoming loose and wet if we do get an awful lot of rain afterwards. We found that the optimum speed for one of these is about 16, 17 kilometres an hour, and at that speed it just flicks soil up and you end up with that layer of tilth.
Thanks for watching, guys. We've been at Claydon family farm and factory all day. It's been mega, so thank you to them for having us. We've learned a lot today, really. More about soil health and structure, and yeah, basically how we can farm for less, really, which is exactly what we're all trying to do. So thanks for watching it. If you enjoyed the videos, make sure you check out the other videos on screen now. Cheers, guys.